On this episode of AV Week, one of the vice presidents of Samsung is stepping down, investing in the future of the audiovisual industry, and living in a world without touch panels for control and automation systems. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 321, recorded Friday, October 20th, 2017. No button control.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Christie Digital and by Vadio, a leading manufacturer of professional PTZ cameras, Pro AV solutions, and UCC integration systems.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to talk about the news and information, the person who thinks he's the smartest guy in the industry, his name is Josh Schrago. He probably is one of the smartest guys. How are you, sir?
Well, I don't think I'm the smartest guy. There's too many people that have come before me. Have you met Bill Nattrass? Jesus
this
Christ.
is true, yeah.
He is terrifyingly intelligent,
Yes.
along with a lot of other brilliant people that are leading the industry, and even the other member of this group that you've got today. But I'm certainly smarter than you.
That doesn't take a whole lot, dude. It's like
I'm
saying
not,
that
I'm not
like,
making a big claim.
It's like
here.
saying
I'm
that,
just
that
making a
Shaq is taller than you. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm not making a big claim. I'm just making the claim.
The claim. Well, I will give you that, and so is Greenblatt. And the other person to help us talk is Mr. Steve Greenblatt. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'll stay out of that.
Yeah, stay out of it. Both of y'all are smarter than me. Here's the one thing. People ask me, how do you do what you do? I have made the contention I am not the smartest person in this industry. I'm probably just one of the most curious because I know I'm not the smartest. I just know some of the smartest. All right. And I invite them on my show. So, hey, there it is. Let's kick this off with a bit of international, I almost said international espionage and intrigue. It's not. It's just international news. The head of Samsung, of Samsung Electronics CEO and vice chair, Kwan, has resigned from his post, quote, unquote, in the face of unprecedented crisis. Now, if you haven't been following the drama that's been going on with the Samsung and the family that's running Samsung, we've got one person in jail for bribing a president. Now we have this. You have Samsung / Harman laying off 650 some odd employees. You've got a lot of crap going on. Strego, when it comes down to it, do these? Let's go back to the actual Samsung as a whole, the overarching company. Things like the jail sentence and this gentleman, resigning under unprecedented circumstances. Is this going to impact the industry in general and Samsung as a company?
Well, let's look at the fact that also in that same article, it states that he is resigning after reporting record profits again. So I'm going to go with no, but at the same time, it's interesting to me because there's two factors here that I was unclear in the article as to whether or not it was what the unprecedented crisis was. Was it the fact that they are dealing with all of these leadership issues within Samsung itself? Or is it the fact that he recognizes that the current leadership structure is not attuned to where things are going and wants to see younger leadership, which was something he also mentioned, which that to me is much more interesting in terms of this is a head of one of the largest electronics manufacturers in the world that is saying we need to put people in here who are more understanding of where we're headed as an industry, as an electronics manufacturer, and where we're heading for smart homes, for smart cars, for again, the Harman portion of this is such a small percentage of what Samsung is. Even the Samsung commercial displays are such a small portion of what they do.
Well,
so it's one of those things that just keeps going back on itself of bringing this younger leadership in to help steer that ship towards a whole new generation. And then when you look at what Samsung's breadth is in South Korea, where they've built out whole IoT networks to develop their IoT platform, where they've built out all these smart devices and all these interoperable circumstances, they've really created something that needs continued visionary and continued guidance to look what's coming next, not where we are. So there's an unprecedented crisis of let's get younger minds and more forward-thinking people involved and see where that can take us. And I don't know that I would necessarily call that a crisis, but I do call that highly unprecedented.
Well, real quickly before we move off of this, a couple of things about what you said there. First of all, the saying that it's such a small part, meaning the displays and the Harman part, yes, for Samsung overall, but people don't tend to not remember or don't realize that Samsung makes more than just TVs and tablets, right? They're the overarching Samsung business, the family that owns that. They have their hands and their investments in so many varied industries, not just in South Korea, but they have transportation, they have farming, they have all sorts of other things that all add to that bottom line. So when you look at the bottom line for Samsung, that's not just electronics. Yes, electronics is I would say, looking at it, electronics is a good portion of it. And of that portion, you have Harman, and of that portion, you have, displays and phones and things of that nature. The other thing is, within the economic crisis here in the States, they started referring to companies as too big to fail, especially the banking industry. Samsung in South Korea is literally too big to fail. Right? If Samsung collapses or has some sort of economic downturn, the country has an economic downturn. That company is so heavily ingrained in their economy and their politics and their everyday life that it is. I'm not saying it's one and the same, because that sounds kind of odd, but the company is so ingrained in that country that as it goes, so goes the country. Am I wrong on that, Josh?
Well, I mean, that's not incorrect at all. That's the state of the industry for them. That is the state of the world for them. And, it likens us back to early 20th century in the United States when you talk about Rockefeller and you talk about the expansion of the age of industry that we faced and how few influencers we had at that point as they expanded. So, yeah. But again, the question that you originally asked was, will this be a big impact on us? And the answer is flat out, no.
All right, Mr. Greenblatt, same kind of question to you. Are these days of our lives, as far as Samsung goes, going to impact us?
I would say on some levels it would actually. Recent conversations that I've had, and I hate to hear this too because they're good companies, but I feel like the Harman family of companies, there's some uncertainty as to the direction that things are going, and I think that the Samsung leadership changes and not knowing if they're going to spin off any of these companies, what the future looks like for them, has caused some buyer uncertainty in knowing too, is this a good investment? Should I invest in this product line? What is it going to be in a year, in a few years? Are they even going to be able to service things that I'm currently buying? So, and also, and I'm sure that Josh can relate, when you're looking at jobs that are 5 years out, is this a company that you feel is going to be there for you? And from my perspective, I hope they are. And I'm not saying that I'm trying to create any propaganda or concerns, but it's just conversations that I've been hearing, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, in the fact that the turbulence of the company itself could actually impact the bottom line of some of their smaller parts and pieces of their company. So. All right, moving on to our buddies over at Commercial Integrator. Craig McCormick has posted about the ICIA, the ICIF grant program a couple of times. He started talking about it, I think, last year before last. And bottom line is the ICIF is Infocom's education foundation. It's geared to, and its purpose is to provide scholarships for young and up and coming AV professionals and people who are aspiring to be AV professionals. And he wrote about it last year, asking about, why integrators wouldn't, contribute to this. He writes another one again, and as this move from Infocom to Avixa, I thought it was cogent to ask the question again. Steve will ask basically the same question that Craig is asking. He asked, quote unquote, why won't more Avixa members invest $2,000 in the industry's future? And what that alludes to is the fact that that's what ICIF is asking integrators and manufacturers for, is a $2,000 investment to go towards this scholarship. So why wouldn't more integrators want to invest in the future of AV?
That's a good question, and I, in going through the article, the only answer I can come up with is because either they are not familiar with it, or they don't realize the benefit it could have to them directly. But I think this is a great way to be able to find an avenue to bring in talent and to potentially help groom talent, and from a manufacturer and integrator standpoint, it's possible to be able to identify with these students early on in them working on projects or working with your equipment, so that they can really even have a direct correlation with how you do business, and have you have some influence over them. So when they are looking for a job, they may look to you for that opportunity.
Josh, I want to ask you this, and it's somewhat of a leading question, but I apologize beforehand. The $2,000 is not an insignificant amount of money, right? AVWeek is already in the process of adjusting their membership levels, and then they're adjusting them based on feedback they're getting from different sorts of integrators. You have the big 50, right? Let's reference SCN's top 50 integrators of the year. These are folks who sell, I wouldn't say the last year, the bottom, the one at the 50th was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $35 million a year. But you have a lot of integrators who don't make that, right? You have a number of, and you remember this when you worked at TOA, you had AVI SPL, but you also had some really great regional folks who maybe had one office in one community, and they did gangbusters. Now, if you're doing gangbusters in Boise, Idaho, you're not selling $50 million a year, but you're a profitable business. But $2,000 is still a lot of money to some of these folks. So is maybe the cost an issue here?
No.
Okay.
I really don't believe $2,000 is a massive investment. Yes, it is percentage-wise, it's a bigger investment for smaller firms. I think that this article had a lot to unpack in it. And I think that a lot of things got jumbled together in one narrative. And I think that where Craig is going is a very important question to be asked, but the things that were packaged together were not not necessarily the right narrative to get to that question.
Okay.
So some of the things that he brought up in this article were very, very significant of, why don't we have more AV training programs in colleges? Well, because nobody's asking for it, because the cost of doing that kind of an education is extremely high to put together a program, find the professionals to teach it, and give them the facilities to actually train them. And the investment on that, on a very small return on investment of students that would then pay for that program, doesn't necessitate that the university sees a good investment for them to pursue that when there are other avenues such as computer programming and such as all of the programming and computer science skills that are generating a lot more revenue right now for the university to sustain those programs, get the educators, get the students in, and get them in and out and continuing progress, and then providing money back to the university as alumni. So that's one thing right there. That's something that came up in this. And I've had that conversation with universities about what would it take to get these kinds of programs. Simultaneously, on the other end of that, is AVWeek is reaching out to all the junior colleges and is reaching out particularly in California itself, where we have junior college, community colleges that are starting to adopt and going to be implementing within the next few years the Infocom CTS program as an education. And so you can walk out with a certificate saying you've completed this and then go take the CTS, and you are now a CTS certified individual who could be easily employable in those environments. So there's also that fact that AVWeek has recognized this and is saying, hey, we're now going to help promote this. We're going to help push this. We're going to help drive this to bring new people to the industry. Add into that, this is an industry that is typically branched off of the electronics industry or come out of the music industry, both of which are known for an apprenticeship education. So when you tie all of this package and bow it together, it's one of these things of there's a lot of information, and we are a shifting industry in terms of how we need to get people into it. TCOM itself, we had eight or nine interns this summer, and we put them through TCOM University. We built an entire 3-month program of, they had education classes every day on telecommunications, on networking, on AV, on security, on all of the things that we do. And we hired one right out of the gate as soon as we were done. They finished the program. We said, hey, we like you. We want you to stay. Come work for us. And these kinds of things are something that we have the capability of doing because we're a larger firm. We do very well for ourselves, but we're also looking to bring in more revenue. And we're also looking to bring in more younger people that we can train and we can build up into this. So it's looking at the avenues that we may not have looked at previously, because not everybody, I mean, yes, when you ask the question, how'd you get started in this? I was a musician. 70% of the people in the industry, I mean, maybe that's an overestimate, but we always make the joke. It's around that 70% mark. That number is going to start decreasing very, very soon. And it's because we have to start looking at the graphic designers. We have to start looking at the computer science people, the electrical engineers, and we have to start finding ways to show them the opportunities that exist here. And that is where this ICIA program or ICIF program can build into how this industry develops and how this industry moves forward. Is, yes, the investment may seem like a lot up front, but we also have to make sure that that investment is going to people in that region. Because if I'm giving that $2,000, and again, I'm not, just to state openly, I don't have the familiarity as to how that money is distributed once it is invested. I don't have that information. So if my company is going to invest $2,000, but it doesn't benefit anybody in my region, why would I give $2,000 if it doesn't help me? But I can't.
And that's a valid point.
But I don't have that information off the top of my head. Steve may.
No, it just sounded like in the article that there is some way of being able to direct where that money goes, but I don't know. But I kind of got that sense from the article. That was why I commented as I did. But to Josh's point about having an internship program, that's far more work and far more expensive than $2,000. I mean, and probably far more effective too.
Sure.
But it's a big investment.
It's a massive investment of time and resources, and then you get other things. When I was previously with the integrator, on the integrator side of the world, we helped build the latest Union Hall low voltage training, which had an entire AV training group. So there was rack rooms and projection screens that they were learning to hang as IBEW members. And so the other trades are starting to realize that these opportunities exist, and it's getting these things in front of them. And Infocom is branching out in their way of doing it, and that's fantastic. But Infocom is also saying, hey, help us make this more valuable. Help us pay for these things. Because you also have other programs in the industry like the NSCA Ignite program that are also doing things to reach out to the younger generation and bring in the newer talent and show them the opportunities that exist here. And this goes back to the Avixa name change, where my argument about this, makes one of my favorite things about this is that it brings a whole new world of user interface designers to our life, to our world, because we're reaching out to these content developers. And one of the biggest deficiencies this industry continues to face is development of user interface. And I say that knowing who's on the show with me, is we have so few minds like Steve Greenblatt's that understand how to develop user interface for intuitive things. And so oftentimes we see these UI designs, and that's a gateway opportunity to bring these people in that may not look at AV and go, they may not look at AV as a potential career opportunity.
Well, and you've also got an entire aspect of the industry that, in digital signage. I mentioned that my brain is on digital signage right now because in 2 weeks we'll be in New York for New York Digital Signage Week. But folks, really smart folks, have been talking about DS as a revenue model, as a vertical for a number of years. One of the biggest hangups that integrators tend to have is the content part. Yeah, these folks can hang and bang all day, and they can create some really great systems, and they can put up the network, and they can make sure that the displays are either in a unique outline of that, this, that, and the other. But then the client doesn't know. Okay, great. I have these great TVs, or I have this great display, or I have projection mapping. What am I going to put on it? And a lot of times they get stuck. Both the client does and the integrator, when it comes to the content part. Now, there are some folks who do some really, really bang-up jobs. OpenEye Global, who I met a couple of years ago in the New York area, is one of these companies that do it from start to finish, right? These are content folks as well as integrators or equipment folks. But for the vast majority of them, they're hurting when it comes to getting the complete solution deployed for a digital signage solution and incorporating the graphic designer, which in my talk with Dave Labuscas, the CEO of AVWeek. That person, that icon, that totem is somebody he's been talking about for about a year now as the person who they're trying to get, and they're trying to incorporate it more and more into AVWeek.
And it kind of goes back to the fact of what comes first. Is it the content that you design the system to be able to display, or do you design the system for the content? You know, and I think that it may require a different mindset there. I sometimes wonder how many people use the systems that they actually put in, because there's also a little bit of, you can really get an interesting perspective on it when you do.
All right, last one here, and this will be an interesting one. Let's just put it that way. About, what was it now, Strago? 3 or 4 years ago now, Josh Strago had the brilliant idea on October 2nd. Let's do 31 posts in 31 days in the month of October. On October 2nd. So he worked his tail off, and he did a really good job, and he's done a really good job the last 3 or 4 years of getting 31 posts in 31 days, and it gives us an opportunity as AVNation to celebrate AV Month, which is a celebration of all things AV that AVWeek does. It also gives us an opportunity, it basically, it's a point on the calendar where we're going to actively seek out new voices. And one of those new voices that we got for 31 and 31 this month was a young man by the name of Patrick Murray, who I met actually through Steve Greenblatt and the State of Control show that he does. And Patrick's like, I have something I want to share. I thought, okay, cool, let's do it. He sends me this, and the title of the article is "The Death of the Touch Panel," and I was already hooked. So, Josh, I want to start with you, and I'm going to end with Steve on this. But he brings up a good point, quote unquote. The success of an automation system can be measured by how little user interaction is required. This idea is easy to overlook for an industry that has been focused on the touch panel for so long. So, Mr. Strago, as a designer, as a former integrator, is Mr. Murray right? Is the touch panel not long for this world?
That is a vague time frame to give a yes or no answer to.
Okay.
What
3
I
months.
no. Is the touch panel going to go away? In the traditional sense that we are accustomed to thinking about it? Of course it is. It's already.
Why do you say of course it is? Like it's a foregone conclusion?
Because it's already going away.
Okay.
The traditional sense of purchasing a touch panel from a Tron, as it were, is already starting to go away, to the point where we're seeing improved touch interfaces. I mean, again, it's a well-known fact that the best touch interface on the planet is still the iPad in that form factor. So, and if you can run those systems on an iPad, why would you spend more money potentially on that device when you could run it on just a simple iPad, which is a user interface that most people are very familiar with and understand, and is clean looking and can be deployed very, very easily and maintained very, very easily. But moving back towards what the article was focused on, which is the touch panel is going to continue to go away because we're finding new ways to interact with it. He brings up voice control. I could go on at great length as to why voice control is a problem, and why voice control has privacy issues and security issues, and why the IT group will never allow this thing to take place.
And then I will counter with you that it will take place, but go ahead.
It's cute. You can be wrong too. Anyway, so
okay. 10 years ago, if you would have walked into, and I know this because I did. As a type manager, you walk into an IT group and says, here's this little box here made by Apple. It's great. I can send wireless video, and I want to put this on the network. You got kicked out of their offices faster than anything else in the world, because it's unsecured. There's all sorts of issues with the Apple TV, and the Apple TV is what I'm talking about here. That eventually the president or the head of any organization is going to say, I want this, right? So they started putting them on the network, and then other companies figured out ways to do it a little bit better, a little bit more securely. You have the Barco click share, you have Mersive, you have all these other devices that allow you to wirelessly send video. Voice control is 2017's and 2016's wireless video.
And here's I would make the argument that voice control is the current 4K. It's cute, but we're going to go past it really, really quickly.
Okay.
And the reason why is because we're going to be getting where I think he was right and where I think we're more likely headed is the geolocation. We are talking about GPS. We're talking about tracking devices, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And he didn't go into Wi-Fi enough for my preference. I thought that he could have gone deeper into that in terms of the ability to track users, the ability to get them onto the network very easily by saying, hey, you've registered, you're visiting this person, here's your Wi-Fi password, and here's your privacy agreement that you won't read, and just check this box and click agree, and you'll be on the network. And then the next thing we know, we'll be off and running, and the company has your MAC address. They know where you are. They know which WAP you're connected to. They can provide you turn-by-turn instructions. They can walk you into the room. And if you're an employee there or have previously been a guest there, previously signed on in whatever room you're going to, it pulls up your meeting the minute it gets there, because you walk in and the Bluetooth beacon or the Wi-Fi WAP in that room recognizes your location and says, oh, you're here. Oh, hey, you have a meeting here. Let's turn that on. That is more likely to happen than, hey, do this. Because with hey, do this, I still have to take an action. You want to talk about lack of requirement for the user to do anything, I just have to show up. There's nothing required there. Why do a voice command when I can just show up?
And see, I don't think you're wrong in that. I just think that you're wrong in the fact that the voice control is not going to happen on a corporate level.
Voice command happens on a corporate level.
Okay.
It's just not a good idea.
Oh, okay. You and I can just disagree on that one, because I think it's a great idea. So, Mr. Greenblatt, and not for nothing, but Steve Greenblatt is the chief of everything at Control Concepts, an independent control and automation programming house. He's a longtime control systems programmer, and also the host of our State of Control show, which deals with control and automation in the AV industry. Not for nothing, Patrick used to work for you too. So all of that stuff put together, is Mr. Murray right? Is the touch panel going to go bye-bye?
So I think we're on that path already. And I'm I'm never an extreme person one way or the other. So
No,
I'm gonna always take that conservative route. But first off, like you said, we never thought we were going to get away, move from a dedicated proprietary touch panel to a mobile device, and that's certainly been working. And I think that we've underutilized web interfaces in the AV industry, and they've been around for a long time, and we still treat them like a touch panel interface, but I think that they have more capability and more opportunity for us in the future. The clients are saying more and more, like Josh mentioned, that they want to have either a one button or a no button press solution. I'm more in favor of at least one button press to say that I'm here and I'm ready. But the reliance on the touch panel is definitely going down. There's a huge push right now for simplicity in the user interface. It's funny because when you guys were talking about user interface earlier, I've seen in my years in the industry, which are more than I care to admit right now, is that the focus on user interface has gone up and down and up and down, and you and
I were on a white paper a couple of years ago for Infocom about user interface.
True. And that's when it was coming back into focus. But I think that there were years where we were getting feedback saying, hey, don't do anything special with the user interface. Just give me something that works. My customer doesn't want to pay for it. Now the focus is moving more toward, hey, we better make this thing modern, and we better make this easy to use, and we better make this a showpiece. So I do feel like there needs to be some type of an entry point to the system. I always feel like you need to have some type of a backup or way of doing manual control. The touch panel may not become may move away from being a focal point of the AV system that people identify with, and I think very likely if our industry is going to continue to sustain itself, we have to look more toward creating more automation and be able to have more of bring more of the IoT experience to AV, which I think has less reliance on manual operation and a touch panel. So yes, I do agree with what Patrick is saying. And I think it's going to go, the focus on touch panel is certainly going to continue to become less. And if you want to hear more about this, we're going to cover this in a state of control too. So I'll give you a little pitch there and leave you with a cliffhanger.
See, Strego, that's what you call a tease. That's what that is. It's a tease. You got nothing. All right. Good way to end it. Mr. Josh Strego, thank you, sir, for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
How can people find you or TCOM or anything else you're doing?
You can find me on social media at JSrago. That's at JSRAGO on Twitter, LinkedIn, varying other social media sites. You can find TCOM at www.tcom, that's TEECOM.com. We are one of the leading low voltage consulting firms in the Bay Area, or at least we believe so. And so does San Francisco Business Times, naming us number 81 on the fastest growing small privately held businesses in the Bay Area. So we
awesome.
We're pretty proud of that achievement. Actually, I think the award ceremony was earlier this week. So we're honored and proud to be a part of that, and thank all of our clients for it. So we're glad to be there. But of course, you can always find my writing. I actually have a piece coming out, I think, next week in Sound and Communications, part 2 of my network security and network privacy type of pieces. So you can read the first one in Sound and Communications September issue, and you can catch up with part 2. I believe next week is when the issue comes out.
And not for nothing, but Mr. Strego also added to his hardware mantle the other day as well. So
yes, I did. For those that might wish to see it, I think I do have it over here somewhere.
With you, of course you do.
Oh, look at that! look! Oh,
yes. 40 under 40. You only have a couple more years to continue to win those. So
yeah, I know.
Mr. Greenblatt, you and I will not be winning anything 40 under 40. But how do people find you or Control Concepts?
Company website is controlconcepts.net. I can be found on social media. Just go check out Steve Greenblatt. And one thing on our website, we added some educational offerings, and one of those is doing a an Avista certified CTS renewal credit certification called Programming versus Configuring What to Know. So check that out, and we're offering that as a course to either individuals or groups. So.
Very cool. All right, my name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me because at this point in Twitter, I've given up on the Chicago Bears, and I'm all about hockey, so go Blues. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. You'll find this program on and a host of others. I mentioned Josh's 31 and 31. We were doing 31 posts in 31 days. Had a lot of really great voices, and a lot of them coming up again this week. So check that out. Also check out our underwriter section. These are the folks who help us do what we do, like bring you HTSA next week, and the week after that, New York Digital Signage Week. So doing a lot of traveling here in the fall. So hoping to bring you some really cool stuff around the world of audiovisual. All that and more at AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been AV Week.